Hello everybody, in this video I am going to explain to you chapter 11 of class 10 science, and the name of the chapter is Human Eye and the Colorful World. In the previous chapter, in chapter 10, you might have learned about different types of lens and how different types of lens produce different images and how they can be used to produce different images. In this chapter, we are going to study more about light and also the phenomena of light and one of the most important and wonderful organ of our body, that is the human eye. So I hope you are ready, and please keep your book in your hand to follow as I explain the lesson. So first and foremost, we are going to discuss about the human eye. The human eye is one of the most interesting and one of the most wonderful organ in our body, and it is one of the most complex. And if we see the human eye, it gives the sense of sight. That means it enables us to see. It helps us to see the things around us. All the colorful things that are around us, it is because of the eye and also because of light. So how we see things? Suppose this pen. I want to give an example about this pen. So how can I see this pen? How am I getting this pen in my brain? That how I know that this is a pen. So what happens, that light falls on this pen, and from this pen the light will be reflected to my eye. If the light is not reflected, or if the pen is in dark, I will not be able to see. But if the light falls on this pen, and from this pen, if the light is reflected and enters my eye, if it enters my eye, I'll have the vision, or I'll be able to see this pen. So like that, we can see different colors, we can see so many colorful things in our world, and that is because of two things, that is the light and the human eye. So we'll study in detail all the parts of the human eye and all the components and how they work together. So let's study about the human eye. Okay, now let's study about the human eye. So this is the diagram of the human eye, and you have different components of the eye. That is you can see the crystalline lens here. This part is called the crystalline lens, and attached to that crystalline lens you can see the two muscles. These are ciliary muscles, and at the back end of the eye you will get the retina, and attached to the retina there are many optic nerves, and the shape of the eyeball, in order to maintain, there is a liquid part, and the liquid part is known as vitreous humor. And you can also see that the outer surface, it is known as the cornea, and just in front of the eye lens there are two other components. These are called pupil and iris, and I'll explain to you what the pupil and iris are for. So first and foremost, let's start with the cornea. The cornea, it is a transparent membrane through which the light enters, and this light enters through the cornea and it falls on the lens, and the lens will provide a finer adjustment so that whatever light is coming from one object, suppose you have an object somewhere, you want to see an object, and from that object light will enter the eye. As I told you earlier, that if the light from the object enters the eye, then only you can see. So when the light enters through the cornea, the crystalline eye lens, it will provide finer adjustment in such a way that a image will be formed at the retina. The sharp image should always be formed at the retina. And in order to adjust in such a way, since the object, we have to see object at different distances, what does the eye lens do is that sometimes the eye lens becomes small, or the curvature becomes small, and sometimes it will become thick, and that is accomplished by the ciliary muscles. Sometimes the ciliary muscles contract and sometimes the ciliary muscles are relaxed, so that will change the shape of the eye lens. Sometimes it will be thick, sometimes it will become thinner, so up to a certain extent, and it will focus the object or the light coming from the object to the retina. And just after entering the cornea, there are, I told you that there are pupil and iris, these two components. So in order to know what the pupil and iris do, let's go to the next diagram. So what is the iris? The iris is the, if you see in the front view, you will see that the dark part of your eye, or it may be other color also. Sometimes it is brown, or you might get even blue eyes. That is the iris. That part is called the iris. And inside the iris there is a pupil. Okay, you will see one small darker part, that is called the pupil. And the pupil allows light to pass through it. Okay, the pupil allows light to pass through it. The light coming from any object, it will pass through the pupil, and depending on the size of the object, okay, or the amount of light, the pupil can change its shape, or it will, sometimes it can become bigger, or sometimes it can become smaller, and it is controlled by the iris. It is controlled by this larger part, the iris part, and the pupil becomes sometimes smaller, or sometimes it becomes darker. So always what happens is that when light enters through the cornea, and it enters through the pupil, and the crystalline lens, the crystalline eye lens will create a image here. The image will be formed in the retina. And what is the retina? The retina is a very delicate membrane, and it has a number of light sensitive cells. And as soon as these light sensitive cells, they receive the light from the any object, they will generate electric signals, and these electric signals will be given to the optic nerves, and these optic nerves will send this signal to the brain, where the brain will recognize the signal, and also it will help us to recognize the object that we see. So this is our eye, and I hope you have understood. It is about 2.3 centimeter in diameter, the eyeball. The overall shape, the diameter of the eyeball, it is about 2.3 centimeter. And these are the different components of the eye: the crystalline lens, aqueous humor, and always remember that the light enters through the pupil, and the shape of the pupil is controlled by the iris, and always a real but inverted image is formed in the retina. In the retina, image is formed, and inverted image is formed in the retina, and from that retina, the light sensitive cells present in the retina will send electric signals to the optic nerves to the brain, and the brain will recognize what you have seen, or whatever image is formed here. So I hope you understood. What happens when the eye lens becomes thicker or thinner? That is also one important thing. What happens when the eye lens becomes thicker or thinner? Let's see. What happens when the ciliary muscles contract or when they are relaxed? So I have drawn another diagram for that. See, when the lens is thick, you might have seen, this is a convex lens. When the convex lens, if the curvature is very thick, what happens? The focal length is very near. Focal length is very near. So, and when the lens is very thin, when the curvature of the lens is very thin, the focal length is further away. You can see the difference between the focal length here and the focal length here. So in order to adjust, in order to focus objects at different distances, the eye lens has to change its shape. Sometimes it becomes thicker, sometimes it becomes thinner, so that the image will be focused at the retina. Always the image should be focused at the retina, so that we get a clear image at the retina. So that is why our eye has to sometimes change its shape, and it is done by the ciliary muscles. So now you have learned that the eye lens contains fibrous jelly-like crystals, and the structure or the curvature of the eye lens can be changed with the help of the ciliary muscles. And the ciliary muscles, when they change the curvature of the eye lens, actually it is changing the focal length, and with the change of focal length, it will help us to see clearer. So the ciliary muscles, when they are relaxed, the lens become thin. The lens become thin, and the focal length moves further away. The focal length, it goes further away. But when the ciliary muscles contract, the eye lens curvature become thicker, and when the eye lens become thicker, the focal length comes nearer. So here we get one very important thing, that is called the power of accommodation. Power of accommodation. And what is the power of accommodation? It is the ability of the eye to change its focal length. By changing the curvature of the eye lens, our eye can change the focal length of the eye lens, and that is called power of accommodation. What it means is that, suppose if you want to read, suppose I want to read this words written. So if I want to read these words, my eye will focus so that I can see it clearly. Now. Now if I focus here, and if I try to see further, if I try to see the faraway object by focusing my eye here, I'll see that behind this, the faraway distant objects, it is not clear, or it seems blurred. Again, if I want to see the faraway objects clearly, and if I try to read the objects, if I try to read the letters here, it will see what? It is blurred. You will not be able to read. I cannot read because my eye is focused very far. So in order to see something very far, our eye has to focus in a different way, and in order to see something very near, our eye has to focus in a different way, and that is called power of accommodation. That is done by changing the focal length of the eye lens. Now, of course, there is a limit. There is a limit up to which the ciliary muscles can adjust the focal length of the eye. Suppose if I bring this sheet of paper very much near to my eye, if I try to read it, and if I bring it very much near to my eye, after a certain point you will find that it is becoming blurred, or your eye is getting strained. There will be a strain which you will feel in your eye. So there is a minimum distance up to which our eye can adjust clearly, so that we don't get any strain, or our eye do not have to get any strain. And the nearest distance, that is called the near point of the eye, or it is also known as least distance of distinct vision, or near point. Simply you can say the near point of the eye. What is the near point? It is the minimum distance from the eye. Where you can see the objects clearly without any strain. And also there is a limit to the farthest distance up to where your eye can adjust, and that is called the far point of the eye. The farthest distance up to which your eye can adjust properly, or your eye can see objects clearly, that is called far point of the eye. The near point of the eye is about 25 centimeters from the eye. About 25 centimeters from the eye, you will see objects clearly and without any strain. And the far point of the eye is about infinity. Okay, you can say it is at infinity. It is situated at infinity. I know you might have got this word infinity in the lens and mirror chapter. So it is infinity. So these are far point and near point. Of course, sometimes the crystalline lens becomes cloudy with age. When human beings, when we age or when we become old, it becomes cloudy, and this condition is known as cataract. And proper vision can be restored if you do a cataract surgery. So that is all about power of accommodation and how our eye lens can adjust. So remember here the near point and the far point of the eye. And the near point is about 25 centimeter. It is the minimum distance where our eye can see clearly without any strain. And the far point, it is the farthest distance up to which our eye can see objects clearly or distinctly, and that is about infinity. So that's all about power of accommodation.